Dear Minister of Education, Science and Sport, Dr. Simona Kustec, dear Professor Dr. Jadran Lenarčič, Director of Jožef StefanInstitute, most valuable partners, co-organizers, dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 13th International Technology Transfer Conference. The aim of this conference is to promote knowledge exchange between academia and industry in order to strengthen the cooperation and transfer of innovations from research labs into industrial exploitation. Our goal is also further strengthening the knowledge base and experiences of technology transfer professionals at public research organizations. Today, we are gathered technology transfer experts, researchers, students, and postgraduate students with entrepreneurial ambitions, established and future entrepreneurs, innovators, and also representatives from governmental institutions and policy-making organizations. The 13th International Technology Transfer Conference is being organized under the umbrella of the International Information Society multi-conference that is taking place this week at Jožef StefanInstitute. The 13th International Technology Transfer Conference is a yearly national event of the Consortium for Technology Transfer that is being co-financed by the Republic of Slovenia, Slovenian Ministry of Education, Science and Sport, and the European Union under the European Regional Development Fund. We would like to thank Ministry for Education, Science and Sport and the European Commission for their support. We would also like to thank all co-organizers of the conference and Enterprise Europe Network partners for co-organization of the research to business meetings. Finally, we would like to thank all the associated partners for their support and cooperation. And we have an announcement: the event, except the pitching session, is being recorded and will be made public in the next days. Now let me give you a short guide to today's program. We will first welcome the Minister of Education, Science and Sport, Dr. Simona Kustec. Then Professor Dr. Jadran Lenarčič, Director of the Jožef StefanInstitute, will give a short introduction, and Dr. Špela Stres, Head of the Center for Technology Transfer and Innovation at Jožef StefanInstitute, as the main organizer, will give her view on the current situation on the technology transfer. Two distinguished technology transfer experts, Dr. Jeff Skinner and Dr. Jon Wulff Petersen, will have their keynote lectures. After the keynotes, we will start with the session, Best Innovation with Commercial Potential. 6 research teams will present their inventive technology and business model. Members of the International Evaluation Commission will ask questions and select the winners. In parallel with this program, till 13 o'clock, 130 representatives of research institutions and companies from 13 countries are having bilateral virtual meetings about possible cooperation. In the afternoon, after 1 hour lunch break, we will announce the conference awards. The jury will announce the winning team with the biggest potential to commercialize its technology. This year, we are particularly proud that World Intellectual Property Organization and the Slovenian Intellectual Property Office are among co-organizers of the International Technology Transfer Conference. With them on board, we will be announcing 2 WIPO awards, WIPO IP Enterprise Trophy and WIPO Medal for Inventors. The awards are being given in Slovenia for the first time. The WIPO IP Enterprise Trophy will be announced at 1 o'clock, and the WIPO Medal for Inventors will be announced after the last session. In the afternoon, you will have the opportunity to hear the presentation of scientific papers on technology transfer and intellectual property of different practitioners, followed by the roundtable on IP management in industry. We would like to bring into your attention very interesting short presentations of 16 excellent public research projects as possible opportunities for cooperation of researchers with industry. We will include with the announcement of the WIPO Medal for Inventors and the closing of the event at 5 o'clock afternoon. We hope you will find the conference program valuable and interesting. And now let me invite the Minister of Education, Science and Sport, Dr. Simona Kustec, to give her welcome address. Please.
Thank you very much. Dear distinguished guests, dear researchers, dear partners, dear participants, dear organizers and supporters. It is my great pleasure to greet you at the 13th International Technology Transfer Conference. This year's edition was marked by the global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and was, I am glad to observe and to say that, still very successful implemented online version. Allow me to give you a couple of facts or evidences about Slovenian support. We can also call it Slovenian assistance for tighter, and I am more than sure even stronger cooperation between research and industry that is going on for a while now in Slovenia. I would like to emphasize the three most related measures in this regard, starting with the operational program type of measures, institutional and financial measures. In 2017, the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport had started implementation of the operation that is called National Technology Transfer Consortium, KTT, which aims to strengthen and further develop knowledge transfer activities from the Slovenian research institutes to the industry, and then to further strengthen also the transfer technology offices and their human resources. The later one, the transfer technology offices, will provide support to the researchers and to the Slovenian companies. Their activities will increase a transfer of the results of the researchers into the economy, and by that helping to the Slovenian companies to become active in innovations. Transfer of knowledge and technology within the TTOs is implemented by the consortium, which is again a very clear sign of the need for the cooperation, for the partners to be equally involved and to work together if we want to achieve the final goals of our work, of our ideas. By this, the cooperation of the institutions of the consortium is becoming even better, more active, and especially the one that is leading all of us to the better results. In 2020, we are halfway through the operation, and in most operation activities, I can say and also assess that we are achieving good results. But still, there are many future steps, future orientations that we need to implement, that we need to go together through. And in this relation, I would like to stress that our ministry is planning to support transfer technology offices with some added value also in the new financial perspective of the European Union 2021 to 2027. Then that the cooperation of science and economy in Slovenia is in light of increasement, and in addition to this, Slovenia is successful in raising the funds. I'm speaking especially here about the financial funds for the science researchers and researches from not only the Horizon 2020 program, but also in the coming years. We are right now very actively working on the increasement of gathering the funds with a combination of funds from the RRF and new financial perspective. And we intend to increase significantly also the funds for the research, as this has an important influence in our case, national case, on the research, development and knowledge transfer to the society and to the economy, as well as also to the wider society, social, for different social groups, and in this relation also, of course, for the state. In addition, we plan to reform research and innovation system in a sense of better management between the institutions that are involved. I'm speaking here especially about the ministries and agencies, and of course better connection of different instruments in that ecosystem on all levels of TLC, meaning from 1 to 9. And therefore, we will focus on building state-of-the-art research infrastructure, support research and development programs that enhance the innovation and competitiveness of our economy on an international scale. Speaking about all this, I can say that we are working into the direction to encourage the involvement of Slovenian researchers and researchers' ideas into the international environment, especially with the aim to achieve synergies between development funds. And present times that are being challenging for all of us. However, I'm convinced that our societies will, by investing in people and their knowledge, be the main subject of a success for overcoming all of these challenges that are related to the existing current situation with the COVID and that are relating also to the challenges of the further development of research and synergies cooperation also with the wider outside research stakeholders. In this your case, we are speaking, of course, about the industry and in wider sense about the well-being, better well-being of the societies as a consequence of your work and your cooperation. And let me conclude with these final remarks by wishing you all a successful International Technology Transfer Conference. Stay in a good condition, in a good form, and especially stay healthy. Thank you very much and all my best.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your encouraging words. Now I'd like to kindly invite the Director of Jožef Stefan Institute, Professor Dr. Jadran Lenarčič, to have a welcome speech. Dr. Lenarčič, please.
Thank you, dear Minister, dear friends. Welcome on behalf of the Jožef Stefan Institute. As I understand, this is a BOC conference. I explained when I was young visiting professor in UK in '92, I was invited to a party. The invitation said, among other things, BOB. This meant bring your own bottle. For today's conference, we could say bring your own coffee. I just spilled it over the table 2 minutes ago, so it's not very nice. Given that this is my last opening of this conference, I'm currently emptying my office. I finished my 3rd term as director of the Institute. I can afford a few words on technology transfer history at our Institute. So I can start with what it was like in 1980s. I was employed in '79. Amazingly, there was a substantial demand of industry in those days for collaborations. I was involved in the development of first robots. There were many journalists around. I was used to say, this is the result of domestic development. That was the political motto at the time. Why? Because the imports were limited, so we needed to develop everything by ourselves. Consequently, at the Institute, the applied and the fundamental research were balanced. In the '90s, things changed badly. In industry, the interest of collaboration has declined almost to zero. The economic crisis caused by the loss of Yugoslav market has taken away development departments in many companies. Businesses were saving the skin, and so were we. There was neither time nor money to collaborate. We lost charge from year to year, and eventually the know-how also deteriorated. Paradox, two most successful spin-offs were funded by our institute, as well as the technology park of Jožef Stefan Institute, which later became the Technology Park of Ljubljana. So immediately after 2000, the economy began to recover. I was convinced that the conditions for cooperation between academia and industry would also grow. That didn't happen. The impetus was given to privatization of companies. There was very little interest in technological development and investment in science. When I became director in 2005, I set out to solve this problem. But after the first results, the first 2-3 years, the global economic crisis hit us and pushed everything back. After 2010, we struggled to save our skin again. Public money for science fell sharply, and in the field of technology transfer, even to pure zero. I speak about years 2014 and 2015. During this time, our TTT Center started operating, led by Dr. Špela Stres, which made important steps mainly in the field of intellectual property. It was around 2017 when the situation began to improve. Unfortunately, during the crisis, Slovenia fell on the scale of technological development. I have often reminded our politicians that this will happen. On the other hand, it was very positive that the industry became aware of the importance of technological development and cooperation with science. This put pressure on politicians. They finally began to pay more attention to this area. In the following years, everything looked good, although we were significantly behind compared to Austria, for example. Now, in 2020, we were caught by a piece of protein that is on the edge between living and non-living, which we call virus. What happens next remains to be seen. The state will have to pursue a very sensible strategy in this area. As a specialist of robotics, I remember one economist reported a few years ago that robots in Europe would take away thousands of jobs. The numbers were even calculated. Every journalist later asked me about it. I argued that it is not true and that robots create new jobs. COVID provided the proof. How many jobs, how many millions of jobs have been saved in Europe precisely because of robotics and automation these days. So technology is important. So let me finish here. I wish you a fruitful conference and many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of Jožef Stefan Institute, for the support that you have given to the technology transfer processes and Center for Technology Transfer and Innovation through all the years. Now, please let me to invite Dr. Špela Stres, Head of the Center for Technology Transfer and Innovation, to join us. Špela, please.
Dear Minister, dear Director, dear colleagues, friends and co-workers of Transfer of Knowledge and Technology. A kind welcome also from the Center of Tech Transfer and Innovation at Jožef Stefan Institute. This is the 4th event of the Consortium of Knowledge and Tech Transfer in Slovenia, comprising 8 tech transfer offices, which have been collaborating now for almost 3 years. We are deeply grateful to the Ministry of Education, Science and Sports to have acknowledged the tech transfer profession and secured a 5-year project to support our activities. And we celebrate this collaboration. I would like to thank here all 8 partners in the consortium. Each has contributed according to their capacity. Warm thanks also to the other conference partners who tried to contribute in any way possible for them. At this point, I would also like to thank our director for his continuing support throughout the years. Although there were many times when we were left to our own devices, we were allowed to use them for the benefit of the Institute and the tech transfer at the Institute. Also, this conference is a result of this environment to support its development in all fields, including technology transfer. This is the 13th International Tech Transfer Conference in a row. It has always adjusted to the spirit of the time, by including distinguished international speakers, pitch presentations of industry-ready technologies, awards for best innovations from research organizations. These awards have been throughout the years awarded to several different Slovenian research institutions, many of them currently partners of our Technology Transfer Consortium. The conference is so diverse, and it is so because it tries to incorporate all segments crucial for the execution of the knowledge and tech transfer. However, there are still new territories to venture to. So today, as has already been said, the World Intellectual Property Office will bestow 2 international awards at this event. And we thank WIPO for their kind support in co-organization of the event, but we also extend our gratitude to the Slovenian IP office who made this collaboration possible. Another novelty this year of the conference is the section with scientific contributions on tech transfer. It is important as we strive to improve efficiency in tech transfer. In that effort, an objective approach is needed, and it is offered through the scientific way of thinking, which encourages analysis, database discussions, and venturing into the unknown, where still many questions lay unanswered. For example, the proposed new Slovenian law on research development and innovation introduces new incentives for cooperation with the industry and for collaboration in the EU projects. But why a higher ponder for EU than for industry project collaboration incentives? What exactly counts as a cooperation with the industry? What should from now on be the role of the commercialization-based incentives that were in place so far? These are important questions to be answered before the implementation of the new legislation. Also, one can sense the tech transfer activities in the new legislation, which is a very positive message. But is the law actually outlining a technology transfer offices with a set of experts, or is the financing to be thinly spread among the researchers to deal themselves again alone with their industry-academia relations? As the Lady Minister said, the Ministry is willing to support the implementation of technology transfer instrument also in the next financing period, and this is a very, very, very positive message. We urge the Ministry to clearly formalize the technology transfer offices in the proposed new legislation and to lay out their concrete plans for the tech transfer profession in Slovenia in time for the TTOs to operate continuously. To conclude, science and tech transfer are long-term activities. The results we produce today are mainly not for our own benefit, but for the society we want our children to live in. Thus, we need to value highly the spirit of the community, strive for our own perfection, but also assist others in reaching it. Thanks for tuning in, and let us begin with the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Špela Stres, Head of Technology Transfer and Innovation. Now, special thanks for making this conference goes to Dr. Jeff Skinner and Dr. Jon Wulff Petersen. They are not only today's keynote speakers, but they have been involved in the preparation of the conference, also as members of the Evaluation Commission for Best Innovation with Commercial Potential. They were evaluating the candidates for both WIPO awards and reviewing the scientific papers on technology transfer in intellectual property. The conference would not be the same without their involvement. Before we start with the keynote lectures, we'd like to encourage you all to be interactive despite our physical distance. In case you have questions in the following session, you can type them in the GoToWebinar question box or click at the hand button to raise a hand, and we will try to forward questions to the panelists, and if the time will allow us, also give you a possibility to ask directly via voice connection. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Jeff Skinner. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Good, and I'm trusting that you can both see my presentation and hear my voice.
Yes, we see.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the welcome to you all. I apologize that English has to be the language, which happens to be my language. I might be the only person here from the UK, and the whole thing is around English, but there we go. And thank you for Simona, Jadran, Špela, and Robert for the words you gave before. Okay, so straight into this thing then. This is the question that I was asked to address today. Does the relation between tech transfer and business education system influence the transfer efficiency? I've rephrased it slightly into this, okay? So I've said instead, can the relationship between tech transfer and business education systems improve tech transfer efficiency? And then I've added on the words, and how. And if I was only to be given a couple of minutes for this, then this would be the end of the presentation. Yes, it can, and it's certainly something worth striving for, but it is not at all easy. Now, there's just a few words about me, not because I'm trying to show off or anything, because I don't feel I've got a great deal to show off about, but just to say, you know, this is an area where for almost my entire professional life, I have been trying to encourage this engagement. Right, I was a PhD, telecoms, and then head of ventures and tech transfer at UCL. I then did an MBA at London Business School. I created the first management minor in UCL for UCL engineers. First time it had ever happened. I initiated an exchange between UCL and London Business School, which saw 100+ per year researchers go from UCL to take business courses at LBS. I moved to LBS in 2008, and there I work with dozens of MBA entrepreneurs. I've written loads of tech transfer teaching cases, which I use to train people in tech transfer offices around the world. I started Healthcare Clean Tech Challenges, which are combined specifically research and business teams. And I've more than that, I think I've read hundreds of great tech transfer stories as chair of the ITTC review committee. And every one of those stories, this is tech transfer professionals going for accreditation for what they do. Every one of those shows that the technology and the science underlying that is incredibly important, but it's necessary, not sufficient, and not even the pinch of salt. It has to be complemented by a great business strategy. Okay, so business is part of it. So yes, I believe in this stuff, but let's reflect for a moment. Okay, who are we talking about specifically for today? Who are we talking about? Well, it's the science, technology, engineering, bio, etc. academics and researchers. They're the ones who I'm going to assume have the technology from PhD upwards. They have useful technology. A subset of these individuals would like to commercialize it somehow. That's the whole thing. They don't often know how. If they do, they have ideas which can be preconceived ideas, and they might be wrong. All right, and then you layer on top, most don't know how to. Some do very well, mostly those who've done it before, who've come from industry, but most don't know how to, and why should they? It's not their training. Business schools have, they do have faculty who know about entrepreneurial methodology, which extends to technology commercialization. They have existing courses, and let me tell you from experience that virtually every business school course is accessible to researchers. As I said, I've had plenty on even my courses, and the researchers start off being almost indistinguishable from the MBA students, and ultimately it turns out that they are better than many MBA students because they're bright, and this stuff is not rocket science. We also at business schools have MBA students who'd love to work on cool stuff. I mean, many of them want to start an entrepreneurial venture, and there's a paucity of good ideas, frankly. And if they come across somebody else who has an idea, especially if it's a deep tech idea, then they would really like to get involved in that. So you have a pool of willing students who want to get involved somehow. And then you have entrepreneurship club activities. And these are often student run. So those are the raw materials, the researchers with something to offer, and then faculty and students who can complement that somehow. And the question is how? Because we want researchers to learn how to commercialize themselves. Tech transfer officers, fantastic, they're great facilitators, but just the numbers don't stack up. There's 3, 4, 5 for every 100 researchers, maybe every 500 researchers. So it's never going to be possible for the tech transfer officers themselves to run with every good opportunity. What we are trying to do, I think we should be trying to do, is to upskill the academics themselves so they can take the lead in these technologies. So we want researchers to learn how to commercialize and then mix and form teams with those who know how to. And the question is, can we do this 1 + 1 = 3 or 5 or 7? How can we combine the talent effectively, sustainably, efficiently, and importantly, at scale? So these are the real problems that we face, or challenges we have to overcome, issues. Now, I just want to go and say I've tried loads of ways. I mean, when I was talking earlier about all the stuff I've done over the career, it was obviously a passion of mine to say we need to get these two sets of talents together. And over the years, and I've tried loads of different ways. And I just want to run through a few of them. The first is to say, let's have some custom commissioned courses by business school academics, professors, people who know the methodology, could be adjuncts as well. And exclusively for researchers. So we say, well, we've got 50, 30, 20, whatever it is, researchers in our institute, and we want to put them through some sort of package. Let's buy the package in, let's buy the course in. And there are advantages to that, because you can craft the course that you give to technology commercialization. It's no longer a general entrepreneurship or innovation course. It is relevant. It is specific to technology commercialization. It's nice in as much as it flushes the people who are interested from throughout the university, it flushes them out, and it gives them a kind of cohort feel. Even when the course ends, they know each other, the sort of kindred spirits. They will continue to connect and support each other and network and make introductions to each other and boast about how far they've got. So that's valuable. And of course, then you have freedom over duration and scheduling. And as I go on to show that the MBA courses, they can be quite constrained, a 10-week or 15-week course, 10 or 5-week course. And really tech transfer projects that I've been involved in, they take months, if not a couple of years to come to fruition. So the timescales can be wrong, but you can fix that if you do it yourself. There are cons though. Do you ever get enough researchers, to make this worthwhile for a single university? Will the best attend? This is a great problem that my experience is that when you run something internally, it doesn't have a great deal of prestige, and the academics, especially the ones who you want to come along to this, simply won't go because they believe that any sort of continuing education course that is run within their own institution, is it really going to be of really top quality? So will the best people attend? There's no mixing with business students. It's just tech with tech with tech. So where's the networking? Where's the mingling of skills? All right. It can cost a lot of money. And finally, do the business school teachers actually get the audience? Do they understand the audience? So, but it is effective, and I think it can be effective for early career researchers. And they're going to have their tech transfer in the future. But if you grab them at the PhD level and put them through courses, as I have done, then they enjoy them and get a lot out of them. The second is to join existing MBA courses or management courses. Open up the project-based entrepreneurship courses to researchers. Say, come along, in a number which they're still dilute, 5 maybe, and 10 in a cohort of 50 or 60. Researchers might even bring their venture ideas to the MBA class. Hurrah, because it means that the business school students have an opportunity to work on them alongside the researchers. The pros to this is it can be high prestige. The amazing thing is that when you open up a course in a business school at another institution, people want to come because it's seen as being a privilege to be able to go. So you get the best people who want to come and mingle with the MBAs. They can easily work with small numbers, can understand how business thinks because they are immersed in a group of people who are thinking business, which is a very unusual audience, and that's appreciated. And they can form teams with the MBA students. And some of these teams last. I was talking to an academic from at UCL just recently, and he said that my first business came about because I went to the pub afterwards with some MBA students, and one of them I'm still working with. These teams can form. The cons are that the courses aren't specific to tech commercialization, but you know what? That's absolutely fine. As someone once said to me, relevance is a preoccupation of a second-class mind, and I go with that. Take out of it what you can and apply it to your own discipline. I have people in. I run this thing called the Entrepreneurship Summer School, and there we are. It's there, and I invite 10 researchers or outsiders into this course each year, and they love it and they get loads out of it. So I kind of know this works if you can get it organised. We do entrepreneurship journey events, and these are all on the business school, and they are all open to outsiders who get as much out of them as we do. So the a slight variation on this is, can you inject tech transfer projects into MBA courses? Can you say, here's a project, somebody like a tech transfer officer goes along and talks to the MBA students and says, what a wonderful project this is, who wants to work on it? It doesn't quite have a contact feel to it. It can create ideas. It is scalable, but is it really the timescales are wrong. The output is often a work of fiction because the MBA students don't necessarily even engage with the academic, with the researcher. There's little mingling, little team building. So it sounds okay, but really I want to get the researchers into the room. Okay, let's say this. But I do like this, and I write up some of the tech cases as teaching cases, which I then use in MBA classes. So that's great, but more in getting the MBA students to think about tech commercialization than the researchers to think about this. And then finally, there's the outer classroom. Okay, outer classroom, what I call the co-curricular. Now, these activities, and there are dozens of them where I work now at London Business School, organised by staff, which can be very effective and very professional, but extremely costly. The best ones are run by the students themselves, and there are loads of them at our place. They're efficient, they're messy, they're cheap, but they kind of work. And we've got hackathons, launch pads, sector minglings around particular speakers, competitions and challenges, and they're all sort of semi-structured opportunities to mingle. And I want to, it's learn, but it's mingle and it's sort of engage, interact, have that beer. I know more difficult at the moment, but even now we're managing to do it not as well, but virtually. And it need not be one way. Of course, I would encourage the universities, the tech departments to organise these things and invite the MBAs in, so you get the flow in both directions. So we've got the Entrepreneurship Club, huge Entrepreneurship Club, who organise all sorts of stuff for us. That's great. We have business plan competitions, and we would welcome ideas coming in from others. That our students could work on and form teams, because they're alpha type people and they just want to win. So the best ideas. I have Clean Tech Challenge, which I created myself about 10 years ago, which was specifically designed from around. We've had 25 countries engaged in this thing, and we hold the finals at LBS, and it's specifically designed for students from early career students from technical subjects to come along and with their ideas and say, look, I want to develop this. Any MBA students want to join me, and we can form together and we can compete for this competition. Right, specifically around clean tech, which works, I think, well. I'm not going to say beautifully, I'm going to say, well, we do the same thing with Healthcare Challenge. So I created a Healthcare Challenge, the same thing, a sector specific, and you really can't win this challenge if you are just business or if you are just tech. You have to have this combination of the two of them in this particular team. The one in the middle was from LBS. Launchpad, so the students organise these educational events, and they welcome in people from with a tech background with tech ideas. We do talks, brilliant talks. Talks are an amazing way of flushing out people from great entrepreneurs, and then you make sure that after the talk you have loads of space again for mingling. So it's all about this, bringing people together into a single space so that they can share ideas and possibly form teams as well. So to conclude, STEM, etc. researchers, some are curious about, sorry, that should be about process of commercialization. Others have an actual technology opportunity. That's fine. You want to get them. before they have an opportunity very often, so that their minds are prepared, so they know what to do with the opportunity when it comes, and they actively look out for that opportunity. Business schools have assets that the tech transfer can use, can leverage. Entrepreneurship courses and MBA students, they're the two main ones. Now look, it'll always be a bit ad hoc. I've tried to systemize this over all my years, and I've consistently failed. I just have to take what I can get. If I can get 100 students in a year doing MBA courses, guess what? That is impact. And many years later, I will have students coming back to me and saying, you know, I did this course, it was absolutely amazing, it changed my life. And I'm thinking, well, it doesn't exist anymore. And I said, but I don't really care, because it did exist then, and it's obviously had a major impact on your career. So that's a win. So it'll always be a bit ad hoc. You know, you create these initiatives, they last for a few years, and then people leave, and then it sort of collapses and you start something else, but you've done some good in the meantime, and I think that's the main message. They will always focus on the individual rather than the project development, I think. You know, it's about personal skills training, really. Difficult to demonstrate impact in the short term. I mean, it's human capital building, it's capacity building, and these are always in the slightly longer term. And as I said, there's no steady state. These initiatives come and they go, they're messy, they ride on the enthusiasm of individuals who come and go as well. So there's no steady state, and you have to be constantly reinventing. So my final word really is, if you're going to do one of these things, then just do something. All right, entrepreneurship is a lean approach now. Just do something. Don't overplan it, don't overthink it. Definitely don't ask for permission, just don't even ask for forgiveness. You just know that it's the right thing to do. Just go ahead and do something. And it's by doing, I suppose, these yeah. How can I end? I just say I'm constantly thinking up new ways of engaging. And when I do, I just think, right, let's get going. There's no bureaucracy involved. Let's do something and see what happens. And that's the way that virtually every initiative that I've been involved in this space has got off the ground. So I think that is all I want to say in these brief 15 minutes. As you can tell, I could have happily gone on for 45, but I just went on for 15. So there we are. And I don't know whether you want to stop my screen sharing now, because it's become dramatically boring with a black screen.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. You can share your screen for questions. I'm now inviting all the audience.
Yeah.
All the audience for questions. We have a few minutes for questions. So the panelists who are panelists can switch microphone and ask directly. And the audience, please raise hand if you want to speak, and we will give you a microphone. So there is a hand, and you just switch it, and we will see that you would like to speak. So we have quite a lot of attendees. So please, who will be the first? You can also type questions in the message box. Okay, in the meantime,
you can wait until Jon's done his one, and if any questions occur to you on my talk while you're listening to his, then we can take them both together.
Okay, so we can also record questions, and we can later give you questions if there will be some. In the meantime, maybe just one idea that came across my mind. I mean, you obviously are talking also that it's important to mingle, to network, to get together suits and geeks together. I mean, researchers and business students, for example. So this conference today is also part of scientific conference, where it's a lot of information communication technologies presented. So what do you think about, do you have any experience on how to get such events even more strongly, that people are interacting even more strongly in such events? Our researchers are in top scientific conferences around the world, but I'm not sure how to get to the level that we are also talking on business aspects in such conference, or to get in such conference with with tech transfer issues?
Oh goodness! Whenever you have any type of pitching event or where you're talking about technology opportunities, then I'd just say invite along, get in touch, in our case, with the Tech Club, Tech and Media Club, and the Entrepreneurship Club and the Healthcare Club, and say, look, we're going to do these things, drop by. And you know what, you won't find many people who do, but some will, and they'll be the ones that are most engaged. The management students who are most keen to find and work on a tech-based opportunity will, of course, find those conferences and make sure they go along to them themselves. But I think for a lot of these, it's simply a matter of make them known and invite the management students along, and some will go. And you don't need many committed people to go along and projects to form, and you've had a major impact.
Okay, thank you. So I would again like to give opportunity for questions. So if anybody would like to ask, please raise your hand among the audience. Currently, I don't see any hands, or you can put questions.
I think we should move on to Jon, don't you? I'm looking forward to hearing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So then I would like to invite the next keynote speaker, Dr. Jon Wulff Petersen. Please, you can start sharing your presentation. Thank you.
So do you see it and do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we see you. Thank you.
Very good. So thank you very much for having me again. I've been with this conference for a number of years and I've always enjoyed it. And I'm really sad that I cannot be in Slovenia with you. I'm beginning to think that virtual lunches and virtual beers are not quite the same as the real thing. But hopefully I can be back next year or next year again. You have given me sort of the ultimate question about TTO offices, how to maximize their impact. And I think it would be worth a good day's discussion about this. So in these 15 minutes, we'll scratch the surface and not a lot more than that. But it's a hugely interesting question. And I think it's extremely important for Europe in general that we answer this question and actually make it happen. Just about myself, I've been into technology transfer consultancy for 15 years. Today as a part of an IP consultancy company called Plougmann Vingtoft, headquartered here in Copenhagen in Denmark. Before going into consultancy, I worked with research management, and one of my duties was to be in charge of the TTO office at Risø National Laboratory, which is the largest national laboratory in Denmark. So I also have some practical experience there. But in my consultancy time, I have been interacting with a huge number of TTO offices and have seen all the good things and all the bad things of what is going on in technology transfer, and I just want to share some observations around that. The first thing is that I think that technology transfer is, first of all, a contact sport. So it has to do with people, and exactly as Jeff just described, it's always individuals that make the difference. But at the same time, it's also teamwork, because there's just too many things that you need to be able to do in order to make technology transfer happen. And I just listed all the things that you're supposed to do. I think it's great fun when it succeeds, and I think that's what keeps a lot of people in the profession, while at the same time these people experience immense frustrations due to lack of resources, lack of general understanding of what we're doing, lack of management support, lack of support from everywhere. I think Špela expressed that quite vividly. So but still, whenever it happens and something works out, it's really great fun. And when you combine this individual approach with the team approach, I think 2 key points that I want to put forward immediately is that the earlier you can form some kind of team around new ideas and new technologies, the more likely you're going to be successful. And if you can even get some of these people to be outside people like Jeff discussed, or from your local, the environment that you're working in, the success rate will go up. And another observation is that you will always be short of resources. So when you spend small money wisely, you also increase your chances of success. So apart from having clever individuals, I think the most important thing for a TTO office is to have clever systems and tools. And I've actually been discussing this topic with Jeff for many, many years. And Jeff always maintained that there are not 2 technology transfer cases that were so close to each other that you could formulate a methodology or a process to do this. And I sincerely disagree with this. And we have worked with tools and processes now for 15 years, and we think it's very helpful to have them. So in our opinion, technology transfer is not an individual problem, and you have to overcome your lack of resources by using clever and efficient tools and processes and methods. And one sign of success in this field is that, you know, my general observation is that when TTO offices become successful, suddenly industry will start recruiting their staff. And in some TTO offices, this leads to some sort of oscillation between having a great staff, dedicated people, to having almost no one left. So I think when you're on the rise with a TTO that becomes more successful, you have to start thinking about how can you organize your TTO office in a way that you can plug in new people all the time, because you will be losing them. It's a part of your success story. And in order to do that, you need to have tools and processes and cookbooks that make it easy to get new staff into your office. And I just want to mention briefly one example of such a method that we have developed in our company, which we call the TTO triangle, which is basically a way of organizing the questions that you want to have answered when you have a new technology. And our claim is that we probably all agree on what the questions are, but we may not all agree on whether there is an order that is important, if some questions are more important than others, and whether some questions are showstoppers. And our methodology builds on the assumption that some questions are more important than others, and some of them are showstoppers. And if you use this kind of tool, you will become much more efficient than if you just have 40 odd questions that you try to answer at random, which actually happens in many TTO offices. Then tools like this are also excellent for communication, because you can explain internally in your team, you can explain your academics, what's going on. You can even explain to the outside world. And these tools can actually follow a technology all the way out to the end user, because even the end users will understand some of the things that go into this. And of course, it will be an important part of a portfolio management system as you go along. I could be speaking for hours and hours on tools and processes and whatever you could install that would help your life in there. But I think as you go along, you'll find out that you have certain needs in this area, and many of these things can actually be found on the internet. One thing that we use a lot in Scandinavia is a tool called the NABC, which was developed by Stanford Research Institute in California, and which is very closely linked to our triangle methodology. You can find project plan templates, issue log templates, and all these things are all out there. And if you look at what my title included, the funnel, which I've indicated here in the bottom part of the screen. So the funnel of the TTO office, where you stuff ideas in from one end, you analyze and you filter, and in the end out comes deals and dollars. And for running and optimizing a process like this, many tools can actually help you to do this effectively. We also propose you to grade your technologies as you work with them. So if you have a system of individually grading a technology at the point where you are in its development, it will help you a lot, because it will help you to understand what are we missing, what can we actually improve, is it likely that we will ever get there? And as you move along and go deeper into this, you will see that this will become a very important part of your portfolio management system. And of course, it also helps with the communication a lot. And it can be simple or it can be complicated. So we use a very simple system where we grade technologies from 0 to 10. And our experience is anything above 7 will have a good chance of making it. Anything significantly below 7 is unlikely to make it, unless we can really remove some of the stumbling blocks that we have observed. But of course, you can also make much more complicated systems if you like. Then there is the communication part of it. So technology transfer in a technology transfer office can, in many instances, turn out to be a very lonely thing, where you're given a stack of inventions and you're just asked, go for it, and you try to work out your own ways, and you become a very lonely person. So we think that the TTO offices that are successful are those that combine two apparently contradictory things, namely that they to some extent understand technology, but at the same time they are outgoing and have great social skills. And these people are actually rare. And if you're one of those people who can combine this, you have to think of yourself as a very valuable person, because you will really be the key to making this happen. And the communication skills are a very important part of this business. And then I just want to touch upon one thing which I've also discussed with Jeff for many years, whether what's going on inside the TTO is going to be a trade secret, because this is where you create value and you don't want to give away your methods or your thinking. And I think it is absolutely essential that you're transparent and open to everyone around the TTO office, not only your researchers, but also to the external world. And a lot of work in a TTO office runs in a circle, where you get ideas in, they maybe turn into an invention disclosure at some point. You analyze and you filter, you do business development. At some point, an invention, a new technology seems to go successful or it goes bad. And at the point where it goes back, you have to give the idea back to the researcher and explain him, or even better, he understands as being part of the team why it doesn't go anywhere. And if you can make that into a learning exercise instead of just a very negative experience, then you have not a fully happy customer, but a customer that will come back and which will talk positively about you in the organization. And this is very important if you want to do TTO work. You have to be seen as a positive resource among your customers internally in your PRO. Now, as I said, there are many other things that we could discuss. I want to end by a few words on this impact question. And I want to refer to a European project called Progress TT. And one of the things that Progress TT did was to look at what are the factors that make TTO offices successful. And the project identified 4 factors. One of them is trivial. You need to have good researchers. And of course, most of you come from universities that will fulfill this. There are some people who come from very small institutions with a very small number of researchers, and that's very difficult to build a TTO office on that. Then the next criteria is the support of your top management. So the experience is that the more top management support you have, the more management support you have on all levels, the more likely it is that you're going to be successful. And the most successful TTO offices around the world, they have had this support for many years. So if you have any chance to work with your management on all levels, invest time in that. We heard from the director of the Jožef StefanInstitute that he has been supportive for many years for this, and this is a huge asset, and probably also a reason why you're making progress in this area. The third parameter of success is a good functioning TTO office with good tools and processes that can actually work the funnel. And the final success criteria is the stakeholder or ecosystem understanding, that you build an ecosystem around your TTO office and that you use local industry and local investors. And I know from our discussions that you think that Slovenia is a small country with very few resources in this area, but I tell you, working with local resources is a lot easier than working with, you know, American or Japanese companies very far away. In general, I think the idea of small countries, universities with lower brands than MIT and UCL and all of these well-branded universities, it's very difficult for a smaller university with a smaller brand to do technology transfer on long distances. So please keep an eye on your local environment and use it as well as you can. And I think I'm coming to the end. I think that you will be getting access to the slides, and I've added a stack of slides to this presentation about market analysis, which I think is it's a topic that interests me quite a lot, and which I think is being misunderstood by a lot of TTO professionals. So I urge you to go and look at these questions or slides, and if you have any questions, you can always contact me later. I would be most happy to help you with it. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jon. Dr. Jon Wulff Petersen, thank you. Now it's time to ask questions. So please type your questions in the box, or if you're a panelist, you can also switch your microphone on and you can ask something.
It's quite challenging.
Okay, so we have one attendee would like to ask questions. Duško Odić, yes. You're self-muted, just please click on the microphone. Just unmute your microphone, Duško, and you will be able to ask. Yes, you are online. Hello? Yes, okay, you can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for these initial talks. They were quite interesting, and there was a lot of talking about what to do. Now, in terms of the lessons to learn about these topics, in terms of thinking of do's and don'ts in tech transfer, I would be interested to hear a bit about the don'ts, because we've heard quite a bit about the do's, what to do, what's the good advice, what's the good practice, and so on. So do you have any advice in terms of what not to do? Thank you.
Well, I have one outstanding example, and that is TTO offices that work in a vacuum and are unaware of what is going on elsewhere in the university. And we have seen some horror examples of TTO officers who have scared away companies that were putting in millions and millions of euros worth in research in their own institution, and being completely unaware of what was going on. They were damaging the relationship. So I think the TTO office is always a niche player, and a lot of things are going on that you may or may not be aware of. And you have to position yourself very carefully in that picture, because you can do more damage than good. At least that's one example.
I mean, thank you, Jon, for giving me time to think while I thought up my own example. Mine is, don't get too far ahead of the research team you're trying to help. You know, otherwise the project becomes yours and a considerable drain on your resource rather than theirs. And I think ownership always has to remain with the academic or research group or individual themselves. So you want to be encouraging them, but you don't want to be too far ahead of them. Otherwise, it becomes your project and you'll very quickly run out of bandwidth.
Right. Jeff, you once described the life cycle of a TTO office, starting with basically one individual that will have to work with the academic because you have no other choice. You don't have resources to do it. But then quite often there comes the second phase where you get more resources, and some TTO offices turn towards the inside of the office, and they tend to take over technologies instead of working with the academics, as Jeff is describing. I mean, and this is a very dangerous phase for a technology transfer office.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, it was me and the whole university. That was lovely because it means I just worked with the people who wanted to work with me, and I wasn't sort of, you know, there wasn't the expectation that I could help everybody because it was so obvious it was just me. And those were some of the happiest days. Later on, when the office grows, and a large office is a mixed blessing. I think one of the worst things an office can do is to have a grand launch, to tell all academics, this is what we can do for you, because you set expectations so high that you can never meet them. And I have an aversion to launch events because I'd far rather just work underground with the people who want to work with me without setting the expectation that I'm there to serve everyone. And I think that's the beginning of the end, he says controversially.
Yeah, I have one more example of something that you shouldn't do. So if you're trying to market a new technology, don't believe that the industry know what they want or what they need. And don't think that if you meet one of their technicians, he will be excited about hearing about your new technology. So the not invented here syndrome is one of the biggest disappointments of TTO offices. So be very careful of not running into this trap.
I think the opposite is also true. You talk to somebody fairly low in the organization who gets terribly excited about what you've got, and you don't realize that he has very little authority to commit the company as a whole to do anything at all.
That too.
Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Jeff, for these answers. Are there any other questions? You can also type in the box, or if you're a panelist, you can switch microphone on and you can ask directly. Okay,